She threw me out like trash when I was a teenager. Now that I've built the life she said I never could, she's back and she wants a piece of it. I'm Mara, 29, female, and I still remember the exact sound my mother's voice made when she told me to leave. Not angry, not sad, just empty. You're 18 now, Mara. You'll figure it out. We have to focus on the twins. That was it. No fight, no warning. Just a cardboard box of my clothes by the front door, and my mother, Rowena, 44 at the time, standing beside her new husband, Cal, like they were landlords evicting a stranger. The twins, Lila and Evan, were barely 2, sitting on the living room rug, playing with toys I'd bought from my part-time grocery job. I was supposed to be packing for college orientation. Instead, I was packing to disappear. When Cal first came around, he was charming in that over-polished salesman kind of way. Always smiling, always helpful. He called me champ, bought dinner a few times, tried too hard to seem like he cared. But once the twins were born, that mask slipped fast. He started talking about our real family, and every time he said it, it felt like a punch. My mom just went along with it. She hadn't always been that way. She used to hum when she cooked, read to me before bed, save up to take me to the movies once a month. But after marrying Cal, it was like she shrunk herself into this quiet, brittle version of who she used to be. She stopped saying my daughter and started saying Mara's almost grown. Every affection came with a condition. By the time I graduated high school, I could already feel it coming. The slow fade out. They stopped including me in family plans. My room started filling with boxes of baby clothes. My mom started sighing every time I mentioned college. Then one evening after dinner, she said she needed to talk. Her tone had that careful, fake sweetness I'd come to dread. Mara, you've got to start thinking about standing on your own 2 feet, she said. We just can't afford everything anymore. Cal and I, we have to think about the twins' future. I asked, well, what about mine? Cal didn't even look up from his tablet. You're an adult now, he said, like he was reading from a script. It's time to start acting like one. They gave me a week to move out, 7 days. I remember standing in my half-empty room, tracing the faint outlines on the wall where my posters had been. That's when it hit me. They weren't just pushing me out. They were rewriting the story so I'd never been part of it at all. My grandparents took me in, without hesitation. My grandpa left a porch light on for me every night that first week. My grandma made lentil soup and told me, "You didn't deserve that, sweetheart." I didn't cry until she said that. That was the last time I lived under Rowena's roof. After that, I worked nights, studied during the day, and built a life out of exhaustion and stubbornness. Every paycheck felt like proof that I didn't need her. And for years I didn't. But I had no idea how far she'd go to make me need her again. For a long time I thought I'd buried that version of my life. The one with Rowena and Cal and the twins. It took years to stop flinching whenever I heard the word family. I moved in with my grandparents in Brenton Falls, a small town where people actually said good morning to each other. It wasn't glamorous, but it was safe. I enrolled in community college, studied business administration by day, worked night shifts at a diner on Route 6. I remember coming home smelling like coffee and fries, falling asleep to the sound of my grandma's old clock ticking in the hallway. It was hard, painfully hard, but it was mine. By the time I turned 24, I'd transferred to a state university, graduated, and landed an entry-level job at a logistics company. It wasn't a dream career, but it was a start. I kept climbing, kept saving, kept my head down. I never once called Rowena. She never called me either, except once. When I was 21, she sent a short email that said, "Hope you're doing okay. The twins miss you." That was it. No question about how I'd been surviving, no apology, no offer of help. Just a vague guilt trip hidden behind.
Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story, and tell me what you think in the comments.
A casual tone. I didn't reply. A few years later, I got promoted. Senior operations coordinator, decent salary, benefits, the kind of job I used to daydream about while scraping plates at the diner. I moved into a small apartment in the city, bought my first car. I even started going to therapy, something I could never have imagined affording before. I finally felt steady. Then, about 6 months ago, I got a call from an unknown number while leaving the office. I almost ignored it. But something in me, curiosity, stupidity, whatever, made me pick up. "Mara?" The voice was older, raspier, but still familiar. It was Rowena. I froze in the parking lot. For a second I thought maybe someone had died. But her tone was too bright, too rehearsed. "It's been so long," she said. "I saw your photo online. Your company shared a post about your promotion. You look successful." There it was, the word that made her sound almost hungry. Successful. I said nothing. She rushed on, filling the silence like she always used to. "The twins are seniors now. Can you believe it? They've grown so much. Evan's thinking of studying architecture, and Lila wants to be a nurse. We're so proud." I didn't know why she was telling me this until she said, "College is expensive, Mara. We're really struggling. Cal's been out of work for months, and, well, since you're doing so well now." My hand tightened around my phone. "You're not asking me for money." "I'm asking you to help your family," she said like I was being cruel. "After everything I've done for you?" I laughed, actually laughed. You kicked me out, Rowena. You left me to rot at 18. What exactly did you do for me? Her tone snapped. You always twist things. You become so ungrateful. We made sacrifices for you. I hung up. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone, shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. It had been 11 years. 11 years of silence, and the first thing she says to me is a request for money. I told myself that was the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, she emailed me again. This time, it was longer. Paragraphs about how much the twins needed me, how family should support each other, how I was being cold-hearted. She even attached photos. The twins at prom, smiling, perfect, as if their faces would guilt me into writing a check. I didn't reply, but that silence, it drove her mad. I wish I could say that ignoring Rowena worked. But people like her don't fade quietly. They claw their way back into your life, one boundary at a time. After I stopped replying to her emails, things got weird. It started with little things. A bouquet of lilies on my doorstep with no note. Then a card slipped under my apartment door that said, "Family should never stay strangers." The handwriting was hers, all perfect loops and forced sweetness, like the way she used to sign my report cards when I was a kid. At first, I tried to convince myself it was coincidence. Maybe she was just trying to make amends in her own twisted way. But then my workplace got an unexpected visitor. It was a Thursday. I was sitting in a meeting when our receptionist pinged me on the internal chat. "Hey, there's a woman here asking for you. You says she's your mom?" I felt my stomach drop. I excused myself, walked to the lobby, and there she was, Rowena, in a beige coat, smiling like we were about to go to brunch. "Mara, there you are," she said brightly, loud enough for half the lobby to hear. "You didn't answer my emails. I thought I'd stop by and surprise you." "Rowena," I said, keeping my voice low. "You can't come here." She looked wounded, like I'd slapped her. "Can't a mother visit her daughter?" "You're not visiting," I hissed. "You're showing up at my job uninvited. Leave." She blinked, smile stiffening. "You've changed. You used to be kind." "I'm just trying to talk about helping your brother and sister go to college. I'm not their provider." People were starting to stare. My manager stepped out from his office, awkwardly watching from across the lobby. I turned to security. "Please escort her out." That moment, the look on her face when the guard walked over. It was pure shock, like the world had broken some rule by not bending for her. She left quietly, but I knew it wasn't over. That night, I found 6 new emails in my inbox. Subject lines like, "You're heartless." "This isn't who I raised." "They're your siblings, too." I didn't reply. I forwarded everything to a new folder called Rowena, Evidence, just in case. But she kept pushing. Over the next month, she started messaging my coworkers on LinkedIn, commenting on company posts, even adding people I knew from college. The messages always had the same tone, warm, chatty, manipulative. "So proud of Mara. She's done so well despite our family hardships." She was rewriting history again, turning me into the villain who abandoned her family after success. I blocked her everywhere. She started texting from new numbers. Then came the night she showed up at my apartment. I got home late. It was raining, streetlights flickering through the mist. My building's lobby was empty except for one figure sitting on the bench by the elevator. Beige coat, same fake smile. "Mara, we need to talk." I froze. "How did you even find my address?" "Family always finds a way." Her tone had changed, calm, almost smug. "You owe us. You wouldn't be where you are without the foundation I gave you." I laughed bitterly. "You mean the foundation where you threw me out at 18? Her expression cracked, fury flashing through for just a second. "You become cruel?" "Get out," I said. "Now." She stood, took a step closer. I stepped back. Her perfume, that same powdery floral scent from my childhood, made me nauseous. "Don't make me the enemy," she said softly. "We're family, and family takes care of each other." I didn't answer. I just pointed at the door until she finally left. I called the police that night, not to file a report yet, but to ask what my options were. The officer on the line told me to document everything, keep messages, take photos, don't engage. That was the night I realized something important. This wasn't just guilt anymore. This was obsession. After that night, I stopped sleeping properly. Every creak outside my apartment made me jump. I double-checked the locks twice before bed, then get up again, just to make sure I hadn't imagined turning the deadbolt. I told myself Rowena would get bored eventually, that she'd move on once she realized I wasn't giving her what she wanted. But people like her, they don't let go. They escalate. 2 weeks later, a coworker pulled me aside after lunch. "Hey, Mara, your mom messaged me," he said awkwardly. I just stared at him. "She asked if I could tell her your schedule," he continued. "Said she wanted to surprise you with lunch." My blood ran cold. I thanked him, then went straight to HR. They were sympathetic but cautious. Said they couldn't legally ban someone from contacting employees off hours, but they'd alert security and keep an eye out. I walked out of that meeting shaking. She wasn't just trying to guilt me anymore, she was trying to invade my life. The next day, I found a small envelope taped to my car windshield. No name, just my name in her handwriting and a folded note inside. "I can't believe you're making me beg. We're family. The twins deserve a chance. Stop being selfish." That night, I called my grandma. She answered on the second ring, voice warm and steady, like always. Sweetheart? She's back, I said quietly. Rowena. She found my job, my address, everything. Grandma sighed, a long, heavy sound. I was afraid of this. Did she call you too? She tried. I blocked her after she started talking about you owing her. I told her she needed help. I almost cried. That word, help, was the first time anyone else had said it out loud. But help wasn't what Rowena wanted. She wanted control. The next Friday, I came home to find my apartment door slightly open. Not broken, just unlocked. I froze. The lock wasn't damaged, but the handle was warm, like someone had touched it recently. Inside, nothing was stolen, but I noticed small, sickening details. The curtains were pulled back exactly how my mother used to arrange them. A framed photo of me and my grandparents had been moved from the bookshelf to the kitchen table, and sitting beside it, a mug of coffee, half full, still warm. I called the police, this time, officially. They took fingerprints, asked if I suspected anyone. I gave them her full name, Rowena Carver, my mother. They said they'd look into it. That night, I checked into a hotel. I didn't go back for 3 days. When I finally returned, there was a letter under the door. Longer this time, handwritten and unhinged. You've turned everyone against me, even your grandparents. You think you're better than the family that raised you. But everything you have, your strength, your drive, came from me. You'll see one day. You'll see that I did what I had to. I took pictures, filed everything with the police, and finally got a case number. The officer said I could request a temporary restraining order if she made contact again. I didn't even have time to finish the paperwork before she did. It happened 2 days later. She showed up at my building again, this time screaming in the parking lot, demanding to be let in. When security refused, she threw her purse at them and shouted that I was a selfish parasite who owed her everything. The police came, but by the time they arrived, she was gone. That night, I made my first real Reddit post. I didn't plan to, it just sort of spilled out. I wrote everything, being kicked out, the emails, the stalking, the fear. I didn't name her, just said, my mother reappeared after 11 years, and she's trying to destroy my peace. I didn't expect anyone to care, but by morning, there were hundreds of comments. People telling me I wasn't crazy, that cutting her off wasn't cruel, it was survival. Some even shared stories that mirrored mine, almost word for word. I read every single one. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. Update. So I didn't plan on posting an update this soon, but things escalated. Again. First, thank you to everyone who commented. I didn't expect the flood of messages, advice, or, honestly, the kindness. A few of you said something that hit me hard. You don't owe her forgiveness just because she gave birth to you. I've been replaying that in my head all week. Anyway, the police officially confirmed her prints were in my apartment. She admitted to just stopping by to clean, claiming she still had a key. She never did. The locks had been changed years ago. Now I filed for a restraining order. HR knows everything. Security's on alert. And I'm staying with my grandparents until this gets sorted. But the real kicker, apparently she's been telling the twins, now 17, that I'm withholding money meant for their college fund. I don't even have a college fund. So yeah, this isn't over. But for the first time, I'm not scared anymore. Just done. I wish I could say the restraining order stopped her. It didn't. It just made her smarter. Rowena figured out how to twist the system to her advantage, always staying just barely on the right side of legal. She stopped showing up in person, but she started using other people. First, it was the twins. Lila messaged me on Instagram one night. The tone was polite, almost apologetic. Hey Mara, Mom said you might help with some college costs? I don't want to cause drama, but we're really stressed. I just stared at the message for a long time. Lila was 17, barely a kid when I left. She had no idea what really happened, no idea that the drama she was worried about was her mother's delusion. I typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, I wrote, Lila, I love you, but I can't give your mom any money. Please stay out of it. You don't know everything that happened. She didn't reply. The next day, Rowena posted a long Facebook rant about ungrateful children who abandon family when they're successful. She didn't say my name, but everyone knew. People from our hometown started reaching out. Old neighbors, family friends, even my aunt. Your mother's been through a lot, they said. You should talk to her. I wanted to scream. None of them had been there when I was packing boxes at 18. None of them saw how she erased me. That's when something in me shifted. The fear didn't vanish, but it turned into something else. A kind of cold, steady anger. The kind that comes after years of being manipulated. If Rowena wanted attention, she was going to get it, but on my terms. I'd kept all her emails, all her letters, every screenshot, voicemail, and text, since the day she reappeared. My grandparents had too, copies of their own messages where she'd threatened and guilted them. I compiled everything into a folder, nearly 300 pages of evidence, and handed it to my lawyer. She specialized in harassment and domestic abuse cases. After reading through it, she looked up at me and said, This isn't just harassment, this is stalking and defamation. We can take this further. I agreed. My lawyer filed not just for a permanent restraining order, but also a civil injunction preventing Rowena from contacting anyone connected to me, my workplace, relatives, or even the twins. She also filed a police report for the break-in and the online harassment. When Rowena was served the papers, she went ballistic. She called my grandparents, screaming so loudly my grandpa had to hang up. And then she went on social media again, posting a teary-eyed video rant about how her cold-hearted daughter was suing her own mother for loving too much. The video spread around our small hometown Facebook circles like wildfire. But here's the thing. People didn't believe her anymore. Because I posted my own story. Not a rant, not a fight, just the truth. Calm, factual, with timestamps and screenshots. I wrote, I was kicked out at 18. I built my life alone. 11 years later, my mother reappeared demanding money for her new children. When I said no, she began harassing and stalking me. I'm not ashamed of protecting myself. The comments section turned on her instantly. People she'd fooled for years, neighbors, coworkers, even an old church friend, started calling her out. Didn't you tell everyone Mara dropped out and ran away? Because she didn't, you threw her out. Within hours, she deleted the video. That was the first time Rowena lost control of the narrative, and it broke her. 2 nights later, she showed up at my grandparents' house. My grandpa was sitting on the porch when she pulled up, headlights slicing through the fog. She got out of her car, shaking, mascara streaked down her face. You poisoned her against me, she screamed. You made her hate me. My grandpa stood up slowly, 80 years old, still steady as stone. Rowena, he said, voice calm but firm. You did that yourself. She tried to push past him toward the door. He blocked her. She started hitting him, weak, desperate slaps that barely landed, before collapsing onto the gravel, sobbing. The police arrived minutes later. She was arrested for violating the restraining order and assault. I didn't go see her. I couldn't. But when the officer called me to confirm the incident, he said something that stuck with me. She kept saying, she owes me. She owes me everything. That was it. The perfect summary of who she was. Rowena didn't want a daughter. She wanted property that could pay her debts. The restraining order was finalized a month later. Permanent. Lila and Evan reached out once more, this time together. Their message was short, but it broke me. We're sorry. We didn't know. We're not like her. I cried for a long time that night. Not because I was sad, but because, for the first time, I realized the cycle might actually stop with me. After Rowena's arrest, I thought the storm was finally over. For the first time in months, I could breathe without checking over my shoulder. The restraining order was permanent. The police had her on record, and even the twins, Lila and Evan, had seen through the fog she'd built around them. But peace after chaos feels strange. The quiet doesn't feel like safety. It feels like waiting. I moved out of my apartment downtown and rented a small cottage on the edge of Brenton Falls, close to my grandparents. The place was simple, wood floors, big windows, a porch that creaked when it rained. It reminded me of the childhood I should have had. I filled it with secondhand furniture, my grandmother's quilts, and the smell of fresh coffee every morning. It wasn't big, but it was mine. Then the letters started. They came from a P.O. box in another state. I never opened them. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Tight loops, that sharp slant that made every word look like it was accusing you of something. I gave the first few to the police, but they said since she wasn't breaking the restraining order physically, there wasn't much they could do. So I started collecting them in a shoebox. It became heavier every week. Some nights, I'd sit with the box in my lap, reading the addresses, without opening them, just staring at my name written in her handwriting. Mara Carver. My name, but it looked wrong when she wrote it. Possessive. Like she still thought she owned me. I started therapy again. My therapist, Dr. Lynn, asked me once, "What would justice feel like to you?" I said, "Silence, just silence." 2 months passed without a word from Rowena. I started to believe maybe she'd finally given up. Then, one morning, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You'll regret turning my children against me." No greeting, no signature. But I didn't need one. I called the police again. They traced the message to a prepaid phone purchased under a fake name in a town 2 hours away. I felt sick, like the ground was shifting under me again. She was still out there, still circling. And then she crossed the final line. It was a Tuesday evening in March. I came home from work, unlocked the door, and immediately smelled it. Smoke. Faint, but real. I dropped my bag and ran to the kitchen. There, on the counter, was a small metal pot, scorched black at the bottom. Someone had left the stove on. I hadn't cooked in 3 days. The police came again. The back door's lock had been forced. Nothing stolen. Just a few drawers opened, pictures knocked over, and that burnt pot left like a warning. The officer, who'd handled my earlier reports, was the one who showed up. He looked at the damage, shook his head, and said, "She's escalating again. We'll put extra patrols near here, but you need to stay somewhere safe for a while." I stayed with my grandparents that night. Grandpa kept a shotgun propped by the door. "Just in case," he said. Grandma tried to make tea, but her hands trembled too much to pour the water. I hadn't seen her look that scared since the day I was kicked out. A week later, I received notice from the court. Rowena had violated the restraining order again. Apparently, she'd shown up at Evan's school, yelling that her children were being poisoned by lies. Someone filmed it. The video made local news. She was arrested again. This time, she didn't get bail. That should have been the end, but life doesn't end neatly. The twins reached out again, this time through my grandmother. They wanted to see me, not to ask for money or favors, just to talk. We met at a small diner outside town. Lila was quieter than I remembered. Evan looked older, tired. They both apologized in that halting way teenagers do, where they don't know if it's enough. She told us you abandoned her, Lila said softly. I know, I said. We know now she wasn't well, Evan added. They said she might have to go into a facility after court. I nodded, staring at my untouched coffee. That's probably for the best. Then Lila reached across the table, took my hand, and said, You don't owe her anything, Mara. We get it now. It hit me harder than I expected. All those years of being told I was selfish, heartless, ungrateful, and suddenly the very people she'd tried to use against me were freeing me from that guilt. That night, back at my cottage, I did something small but symbolic. I took that shoebox full of unopened letters out to the backyard, poured lighter fluid over it, and set it on fire. The flames curled and hissed, turning her words into ash. The silence afterward wasn't just quiet, it was peace. Update to, Hey everyone. I wasn't planning on posting again, but I think this is the right moment to close this chapter. Rowena's in a psychiatric treatment program now. The restraining order's permanent, and legally, she can't contact me or the twins. The court made it official. I'm no longer tied to her in any way. A lot of you asked how I feel. The truth, not angry, not even bitter, just free. Lila and Evan are doing okay. They both got partial scholarships and are planning to move out of state for college. We're taking it slow, rebuilding something honest this time without her shadow hanging over us. And me? I got promoted last week, bought new locks for the cottage, repainted the front door a pale green, the color my grandma used to call begin again. Sometimes when the wind hits just right, I can still smell faint traces of smoke from that night I burned her letters. But it doesn't make me flinch anymore. It makes me smile, because it reminds me that no matter what she tried to take from me, I built myself back from the ashes. It's strange how healing doesn't come with fireworks. There's no grand moment where the world claps and declares you whole again. It just happens quietly, almost shyly, in the small, ordinary ways. You start to live without fear. It had been 6 months since Rowena was committed. I hadn't seen her, hadn't heard from her, hadn't even had a single letter forwarded my way. Her silence felt almost unnatural at first, like my brain, so used to bracing for impact, didn't know what to do with peace. I started filling that space with things that actually mattered. Therapy continued. Dr. Lynn and I met every Wednesday evening. We didn't talk about Rowena as much anymore. Instead, we talked about Mara, who she was before, and who she wanted to be now. I realized I spent so much of my life reacting to other people's chaos that I didn't actually know what calm felt like. I began building routines. Mornings started with coffee and music, jazz on the old radio my grandpa gave me. I'd sit by the kitchen window, sunlight spilling over the sill, and just breathe. Work felt lighter too. For once, I wasn't dragging my past into every meeting, every project. My coworkers even started jokingly calling me boss lady, and for the first time, it didn't make me shrink. The twins came by often. Lila would bring her camera. She'd gotten into photography. And Evan helped me plant a small garden behind the cottage. It wasn't much, just herbs and wildflowers, but every time something new bloomed, it felt like a small rebellion against everything Rowena tried to destroy. One evening, while we were planting, Lila asked softly, Do you think she'll ever get better? I paused, hands in the dirt. I hope so, I said. But that's her road to walk, not mine. Evan nodded. I don't hate her anymore. I just don't trust her. That's okay, I said. You don't have to. Trust isn't owed, it's earned. They both smiled at that. That night after they left, I sat on the porch with a blanket around my shoulders and watched the sun dip behind the trees. The air smelled like rain and soil. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel tight. It was in that quiet moment I realized my revenge had already happened. Not through courts or police reports or even the fire that ate her letters, but through living well. Through existing in peace while she sat in the cage, she built herself, a cage of control, blame, and lies. Rowena used to tell me I'd never make it without her, that I wasn't strong enough, that I'd come crawling back when the world got hard. But I hadn't. I'd built something that no manipulation could touch. A week later, my grandma and I went to Sunday service for the first time in years, not because I'd suddenly found religion, but because she wanted to light a candle for new beginnings. Afterward, we stopped for lunch, at the same diner where I'd met Lila and Evan months earlier. The waitress recognized me. She smiled and said, You're that woman who wrote that post online, right? About family and healing? I blinked. You read that? Everyone did, she said. You helped more people than you know. That night back home, I checked my old Reddit post out of curiosity. Thousands of comments, people sharing their own stories of being cut off, abandoned, rebuilt. Some said it gave them courage to set boundaries. Others said it made them finally pick up the phone and apologize to someone they'd hurt. I didn't reply to any of them. I just sat there, scrolling, tears blurring the words on the screen. For the first time, I wasn't just the girl who'd been kicked out or stalked or hurt. I was the woman who'd survived it and turned the pain into something that meant something. The next morning, I walked outside and found the garden full of small white flowers that hadn't been there before. Lila must have planted them the last time she was over. There was a small note tied to one of the stems. For every bad root you pulled, something beautiful grew back. I stood there for a long time, holding that note, the sun warming my face. For once, I didn't feel like someone's daughter, or victim, or survivor. I just felt like myself. A year has passed since everything ended, or maybe since everything finally began. Life is quieter now, peaceful in a way I used to think was impossible. The kind of peace that doesn't demand attention. It just hums softly in the background, like a heartbeat you can finally hear once the noise is gone. I still live in the little cottage outside Brenton Falls. The wildflowers in the garden have taken over completely, spilling across the fence and into the dirt road that leads up to the house. The locals call it the Carver Bloom. Funny how something born from chaos can turn into something beautiful if you give it enough time. The twins both graduated last spring, Lila studying photography at a small arts college upstate, and Evans apprenticing with an architecture firm. They still visit on holidays, though less often now, which I like. They're building their own lives. The last time they came by, they brought me a framed photo. The three of us in front of the cottage, laughing mid-conversation, sunlight in our hair. It's hanging above the mantel now. Sometimes I catch myself looking at it and thinking how impossible that would have felt a few years ago. For so long, I was sure Rowena had poisoned everything beyond repair, that every bond, every bit of family connection was gone for good. But maybe healing doesn't mean pretending the damage never happened. Maybe it just means planting something new in its place. I haven't heard from Rowena in nearly a year. According to the last update from the court liaison, she's still in treatment. I don't know if she's improving. I don't ask. Some things are better left unmonitored. And if I'm being honest, I don't hate her anymore. I used to think forgiveness meant letting her back in. But I learned it's something entirely different. It's setting the story down so it doesn't keep writing you. One evening not long ago, I drove out to the old house. The one I was kicked out of all those years ago. It's for sale now. The paint's peeling, the yard's overgrown, the swing's set, rusted through. Standing there, I realized it wasn't my house anymore. Hadn't been for a long time, but it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. I just looked at it one last time and whispered, "I made it without you." Then I left. When I got home that night, the porch light my grandpa had given me, the same kind he used to leave on when I was 18 and lost, was glowing softly through the dusk. I'd wired it myself when I moved in. An electrician's habit, I guess. But lately I've started leaving it on every night, even when I'm home. Not for her, not even for me, but for whoever comes after. Someone stumbling through their own dark night, scared and unwanted, who might need a sign that it's possible to build something out of nothing. Because I did. I'm Mara Carver, the girl who was thrown away, the woman who came back stronger, and the daughter who learned that family isn't about who raised you, but who shows up when you fall apart. And for the first time in my life, I can say this without fear or guilt. I don't owe anyone anything, but I give my peace, freely, finally, and fully, to myself.